All right, everyone. So this is going to be really interesting. Now, today we're going to be reacting to a new content creator that we haven't reacted to before, Totally Not Mark. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys already know who Totally Not Mark is, and I was asked a while ago to react to his content, specifically what we're about to react to here, where he did a 100% blind Naruto review. He reviewed the series from beginning all the way to the end, from chapter 1 all the way to chapter 700, and we're going to be reacting to those videos here on this channel. So today, of course, we've got part 1, the very beginning, and we're going to go through all of them all the way to the very last one, which I think is part 13, if I remember correctly. Now, the reason why I waited a bit to react to his content, even though I was asked a long time ago to react to his Naruto reviews, is because I'm sure a lot of you probably already know, but Totally Not Mark did go through some trouble where he got some he got some trouble from Toei Animation, where they basically for lack of a better term, they kind of abused YouTube's copyright system and ended up taking down a lot of his videos. And when he went through that, I thought that, maybe I should, just out of respect for him, I probably should wait before I decide to react to any of his channel until he gets the whole thing sorted out. And even then, I thought that I would still give it some time just to, again, just to be respectful to him. But now we're going to be going through these videos, and I'm really excited because I'm always really interested to see what someone's opinions of the series are, especially if they're completely new to it. Now, we're going to go ahead and watch this, and guys, before we do, as always, make sure you leave a like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't, make sure to click on the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And please, guys, make sure to check the description for links to this video, as well as a link to Totally Not Mark's channel, so you can head on over there, subscribe, watch his videos, and go show him some support. He makes great content. So I want to make sure people go and support him by watching his actual videos, not just watching my videos reacting to his content or anyone else reacting to his content. Make sure you go watch the actual videos themselves. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and watch this, a 100% blind Naruto review part 1, The Land of Waves, which is honestly still to this day one of my favorite arcs in all of Naruto. So let's go ahead.
This video is sponsored by Raycon. Having grown up in Ireland in the late 1990s and early 2000s, shows like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Sailor Moon, and of course Dragon Ball were widely available and accessible. And since then, I've made it my mission to catch up on all the most iconic stories I missed growing up. One Piece, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Hunter x Hunter, and Attack on Titan. All brilliant stories in their own rights, but before I ever heard of One Piece, and long before I ever turned on that first episode of Attack on Titan, I heard whispers of a certain show. A story that was making noise across the pond in the US, one that cast a shadow so large it managed to stretch all the way from Japan to my home. Where I grew up, we never got Naruto. So, let's see if I missed anything good.
Yeah. Okay, this is sorry, but even I can't take risks with music, guys. You guys already know that. Oh, okay, maybe I brought it a little too low. Hold on. You okay now? Okay, yeah, you guys should. Okay, so now that the music's over, I think I can bring it back up, and you guys should be fine now.
Picking that first volume up off the shelf felt terrific. While I knew very little about this story outside of the main character's name, Naruto, and that it's for the most part about ninjas, I was without question acutely aware of one inalienable fact: that this was a beloved franchise, a story people massively identified with, and that it too has its detractors.
So this to me, I always thought was really interesting, which is the fact that Naruto was always, like, in case you don't know, Naruto was always way more popular outside of Japan than in Japan, which is normally not the case. Normally it's a lot more popular in Japan than it is, outside of Japan. And Naruto, I think, was one of the few manga series where more people loved it outside of where it originally came from. And I think, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember even Oda himself said, Oda, who has like One Piece is literally like one of the biggest things in all of Japan, but even Oda himself said that one thing that I wish I had from Naruto was how popular it was outside of Japan. Like even Oda himself knows how much people outside of Japan love Naruto, and I always found that very interesting.
Sounded
Yeah,
very
of
much
course
like
this.
Dragon Ball to me, so while picking that first volume from my shelf, I was filled with a giddy enthusiasm I hadn't felt in years. Finally, after all this time, I was reading Naruto. And I liked these opening chapters, but I didn't love them. In fact, I found them to be a little unfocused, if that makes sense at all. But
The opening chapter is a little rough, I will admit, but thankfully it does get better as it goes on.
don't worry, this video has a happy ending, so sit tight. For me, first impressions are important because you only get one chance to make them. In that same vein, the first paragraph of your novel, or the first chapter of your manga in this case, needs to perform a host of different tricks not only to hold your attention, but to also introduce you to the main character and the wider world the story is set in. And of course, there are different ways to go about performing this narrative somersault. One Piece took an approach adequately representative of what would later be recognized as Oda's style. A comprehensive and intensely powerful character-driven story built on the back of Luffy's ambition. Hajime Isayama's Attack on Titan 2, I think, had a near perfect first impression on the audience it was trying to reach. Establishing its nail-biting premise, the motivations of the main characters, and giving us a taste of the wider world's politically driven infrastructure, I knew I was in for an action-packed political drama the likes of which I would never forget. So yeah, first impressions are important. They're what dictate whether or not many people will give a story their attention in the future. Particularly when it comes to manga, they're released one chapter at a time after all. It's not like a movie or a book where the rest is right there for you to digest, and because of this fact, many manga begin their stories with a much longer than average first chapter to establish what they want. And given that Naruto is still one of the most successful mangas to ever be released, I was surprised by its introduction. The pacing felt fast, almost too fast. I will say though that it did a decent job at establishing the heartbeat of Naruto's journey, with him effectively being the outcast of his community. Armed only with a burning desire to become the next Hokage, I enjoyed that aspect of it. Seeing Naruto struggle with his lessons felt appropriate, hearing about his dream felt intimate, and the success he finds at the end felt adequately cathartic for a first chapter. Helped enormously by Kishimoto's fantastic artistic abilities. I mean, that 2-page spread of the one-time screw-up Naruto performing a fantastic clone technique was given pride of place, and rightfully so. I can still picture that stunning shot right now as I speak. There's plenty I've taken away from this first chapter that I liked, and it was certainly enough to encourage more reading from me, which, I mean, is sort of the only job it has, right?
So I think I may have already mentioned this in a previous video, but one thing that I kind of like missed when I was reading Naruto, not necessarily like recently, but back when, you know, the Naruto manga was still being released, like I did kind of miss when the series looked like this. You know what I mean? Like back when like it still had kind of this look to it. Like before Kishimoto eventually, you know, updated his his art style to what it is now, basically. Like I kind of I guess I always had a soft spot for this look, and not specifically like the 2-page spread, but you know, let me just bring a previous image too. Yeah, like it kind of like this. I kind of miss when the series looked like this. I just I don't know. I guess it's just personal preference. Not that the way he draws now is bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, but I guess I just have a bit of a soft spot in my heart for just the way this looked in particular.
Performing a fantastic clone technique was given pride of place,
And of course, the
rightfully
2-page
so.
spread is just amazing.
That stunning shot right now as I speak. There's plenty I've taken away from this first chapter that I liked, and it was certainly enough to encourage more reading from me, which, I mean, is sort of the only job it has, right? However, along with these impressive aspects to the opening of the story, so too did it come with some, I don't want to say negatives, but it did leave me scratching my head a little. The character of Iruka is given a lot of focus in this first chapter. I can see what Kishimoto might have been going for here, with him acting as a useful individual close enough to share share intimate moments with Naruto, but far enough away to vent candid frustrations for us as an audience to understand. Within this first chapter, he existed as a vehicle to deliver information to us about Naruto, and yet, when I finished it, I didn't feel particularly close to Naruto, but instead, Iruka himself, due to the amount of time we spent with him. Which might not be a bad thing, but certainly wasn't what I was expecting, nor was it, I think, what Kishimoto was aiming for. Furthermore, there's an enormous amount of exposition revealed in the first chapter alone. I would argue far more than is even necessary to make that hook at the end of the first chapter work. Thankfully, however, as the first few chapters drift on by, I started to feel the story catch its stride through the introduction of two crucial characters.
Okay, hold on. Yeah.
I immediately liked Sasuke. Not only did I find him well conceived and conveyed through these introductory chapters, but I also found him to be exactly what this story needed. A rival character. A rival character, while having his own goals that often conflict with the main character, exists primarily to highlight the significant differences between himself and the main character, in this case Naruto. By being a prodigy, top of his class, and sought after by Sakura, Sasuke represents everything that Naruto isn't and what he yearns to be, and in being such also facilitates terrific contrasts that highlight Naruto's greatest attributes, his unflinching desire to never give up and his roaring passion to achieve his goal, to become the greatest Hokage that ever lived. While a character like Sasuke is nowadays, for lack of a better term, cliche, I am a firm believer that oftentimes creative choices become cliches for a reason, because they work. He comes across as dark, serious, and single-minded.
I would say that, cliches work when it's done well, but a lot of the times it can feel like a bit of a crutch. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like sometimes that writers will, rely on cliches because they know it works. And one thing that I do kind of hope is that they, hopefully in the future, is that writers don't just choose to rely on cliches because, like I said, they know it works, but would hopefully try to experiment and just try to do something new. But then again, like some cliches, like the rival character, like the reason why they exist and still continue to exist because, people like it, it works. So you can do it, of course, just, as long as you like put a bit of your own spin to it, enough to the point where it feels like it's unique. You know what I mean? And I get that that's probably not easy to do because the rival character has probably already been done by so many characters, or so many writers, that it can be a little bit hard to make yours stand out from the others.
In his one existing goal, to kill a specific individual that wronged his family in the past, which is great as it not only gives him a want or desire different from the others, but it's also perfectly emblematic of his no-nonsense personality and embellishes his already strong contrast with Naruto's much more light-hearted persona, helping us to better appreciate Naruto's strengths while highlighting his weaknesses, the latter of which developing into an aspect of the story that drives so much of who Naruto is as a character. In essence, I see Sasuke as the perfect foil for Naruto in this story, all of which can be observed after our introduction to another character in Sakura. This one was interesting, and while yes, in a fun way, not always so. Going into this, given the time this story was released, I was relieved to see that Sakura wasn't being used for fan service. If you like that sort of thing, more power to you, but it's never been for me. In the same way I don't like mindless action, I similarly don't care much for mindless over-sexualized characters, male or female. My favorite aspect of her character is how effective she can be as a comic relief. Oftentimes, she's shown with massively over-exaggerated expressions of anger and joy, which I thought added some variety to the mix. Furthermore, from a narrative mechanical front, if we lift the hood on this metaphorical narrative car, we can see that she's clearly and currently depicted as less of a character and more of a mechanism to bolster Naruto and Sasuke's respective roles and encounters, which from a utilitarian perspective is not only fine, but exactly what Kishimoto was looking for. She is a supporting character to Naruto and Sasuke, and without her, these two would have very little reason to interact with each other at all, thus making her instrumental not only in making Sasuke effective in his role, but also by extension responsible for making the main character Naruto shine. She is, for all intents and purposes, the catalyst that makes all the magic happen between them in the beginning. Take, for example, Naruto and Sasuke's first ever interaction in the manga. Very early on, there's an unrequited love triangle established between Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke. Naruto is interested in Sakura, Sakura hates Naruto, but loves Sasuke, and Sasuke loves vengeance.
Yeah.
But my point is that without Sakura Sakura acting as a connective tissue, so to speak, between Naruto and Sasuke, Naruto would never have grown a jealousy for the attention Sasuke is receiving from Sakura, and therefore, this would never have happened.
Oh boy.
And what a shame that would be. I don't want to live in a world where this scene doesn't exist. This
Oh,
was
of
the first
course,
moment in
no.
manga that
This
made me
is
burst out
this is iconic anime history. I mean, you can't not have this here.
laughing, and to be honest, mangas don't do that often for me. So she's a great tool for comedic hijinks too, which I appreciate, but to be clear, her primary directive, at least in these early chapters, is to facilitate this narrative sleight of hand time and again throughout this arc. And it works in both directions. However, this doesn't excuse one glaring flaw I've noticed, and it's probably one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to character writing. She exists to serve other characters and little else. Her existing goals are
This is I completely agree with him here. I usually don't like it when characters are introduced just to, you know, like just to either prop up or, you know, like either prop up or take down certain characters. Like for me, that's just it's not interesting. I would much rather have a character exist, you know, because the writer actually has a story they want to tell with them, but instead they're just used to, like, you know, like he said, to just like help other characters and not so much to like they never really had a story with them. And I guess you could say like that was kind of the case with Kishimoto, or what Kishimoto did with Sakura, because and that's not to say that Sakura doesn't kind of have her own story. I mean, in a way she does, but it's really not all that interesting, you know what I mean? Especially when you compare her to Naruto and Sasuke. And I think that that's where you see a lot of the flaws when it comes to Sakura's character, because when you just look at her on her own, she's not really all that interesting. At least for me. Maybe other people feel differently, but for me personally, when you take Naruto and Sasuke away and just look at Sakura on her own, you realize there really isn't all that much to her character. Like all throughout the series, you never really get to know who Sakura is outside of her crush on Sasuke. Like we never know, like, what's her family life like. I mean, presumably I guess it's fine, because like she was kind of insensitive to Naruto and, you know, where he is right now in life, you know, not having any parents, and then even Sasuke calls her out on it. And so we never really get to know what it's like. We don't get to know what her life is like. We don't get to know what her goals are outside of, like I said, not feeling useless when standing next to Naruto and Sasuke. But that's like that's not really a goal. Like I mean, outside of that, what does she want? You know what I mean? Like, we don't really know that. We never really get any time to get to know who Sakura is as a character. And I think that that's kind of one of, in my opinion, one of Kishimoto's, like, I mean, I don't know if failure is really the right word. I guess missteps. I guess you could say, like, that's one of Kishimoto's missteps when it comes to when he was writing the story, is that he never took the time to, like, get to explore Sakura's character. He never really told us who she is. You know, like, what does she want out of life, excluding, again, like, it can't involve other people. You know what I mean? Like, what does she want for herself, and why does she want it? Like, what drove her to want this thing out of life? Like with Sasuke, we know why he wants revenge, because of what happened, you know, in his past with his brother slaughtering the clan. And then even when that gets resolved, he gets a new goal, and that's understandable. You understand why he has this new goal. And with Naruto, you understand why he wants to be the Hokage. You understand, and then later on, when he kind of gets what he actually wants, you know, like, we know that the reason why he wants to be Hokage is because that's the one that everyone looks at, that's the one everyone admires. And then when he already gets that after the Pain Invasion arc, then he still wants to be Hokage, but it's for a different reason than why he originally wanted to be Hokage. But with Sakura, we got nothing.
selfish, certainly, but the fact that I would have zero idea what sort of person she'd be like if I were to remove Naruto and Sasuke from the equation really serves to highlight my point at this stage of the story. I mean, there's a scene where these three kids get to introduce themselves to each other, a terrific mechanism for us as an audience to get to know them better. Naruto's intro is quirky and fun with a fiery ambition clearly present. Sasuke's is appropriately dark and serious. But Sakura's is literally her saying that she loves Sasuke and hates Naruto. That's it. Funnily enough, she's about to start talking about her other hobbies when Kishimoto decides that that's a good time to cut to Kakashi, making note that she seems to care more about love than ninjutsu. Which brings me to my main contention with her as a character. Her very presence sort of devalues the entire social structure and reputation of the school Naruto struggled to gain acceptance to. At this point in the story, she barely says anything other than wondering where Sasuke is or how annoying Naruto can be. Naruto does have a large interest in her, an interest that at points in this arc drives him to make certain decisions, but he's still able to have other interests and driving forces in his life outside of that. His main motivation is to become the next Hokage, and that's awesome. Absolutely something I can get behind. But if all he wanted to do was to chase Sakura, that would be much less interesting. In short, I respect what she offers the story in terms of quality, but as a character, I not only find her quite vapid, but I also found that at times her inclusion tends to devalue what it is they are trying to achieve. But perhaps it's still early days and I haven't given her a chance to fully express who she is as a character and what she really wants. To be fair, she is standing alongside two very well
here's a spoiler, we're still waiting. Even now at this point in time, we're still waiting.
realized characters. And speaking of contrasts, when I picked up Volume 2, the cover brought to my attention something rather interesting from an artistic point of view. Front and center on the cover, we see Sakura, Sasuke, and Naruto. A fairly standard cover considering the contents of this volume concern them specifically. However, in my Hunter x Hunter review, I eventually pointed out what made Gon and Killua were thoughtfully designed
By the way, if you're interested, we can watch that series where he talks about Hunter x Hunter if you want to.
Characters from an artistic point of view. They acted as a great inversion of colors in the manga when compared to each other. But Kishimoto takes that to the next level with these three. To complement Naruto's upbeat and fiery personality, he's given him bright, vibrant orange and yellows everywhere. For Sasuke, his dark and more stoic personality lends better to darker tones, but what makes him particularly wonderful is only seen in the full color. I mentioned that Sasuke is a wonderful rival character because he effectively contrasts and complements Naruto's personality, amplifying his effect. Well, if we look at a color wheel, we can quite clearly see what the opposite or color complement to orange is. It's
and then
blue.
In the middle,
Sasuke dons a wonderfully dark blue getup, communicating his darker sensibilities and highlighting what he represents to the main character Naruto, a contrast. But my friends, that's not where this ends. I mentioned before that Sakura is sort of the connective tissue that brings these two into contact. In many ways, she acts as the midpoint between the two of them. Naturally, she's going to be colored red to represent her main driving motivation, love, and the word Sakura directly translated means cherry blossom, so pink is a natural inclusion here too. But one look at the color wheel again and you'll notice that pink and red are exactly halfway between orange and blue.
Also, look right here, it's like different shades of green, which is kind of what Kakashi wears. So if you look at the color wheel, it sort of like represents all four of them. Like if you got Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi, which very interesting. I actually never really noticed.
In other words, she is right in the middle between Sasuke and Naruto. I love stuff like this. Well done, Kishimoto. School's back, and that means many hours of painful studying for many of you. I may be long past school, but all this narrative analysis requires a lot of reading, and with my hectic schedule, it sure is nice to do things on the go. Here's how my Raycons helped me, and maybe you'll find they'll help you too. When I'm out and walking my dogs or even laying in bed at night, I'll often have academic books playing in my ears, and my Raycons provide excellent comfort thanks to the gel tips that let you find the perfect match for your ear size. The built-in mic is also great for letting me take voice notes whenever an idea comes to mind or I hear something that I absolutely have to remember. Crystal clear, high quality stuff. All this in a stunning improved rubber oil finish that's super smooth to the touch. It looks and feels premium, and the fact that it's all at half the price of other brands is pretty insane. I've spoken about the battery life many times before, but it really cannot be overstated just how good it is. 8 hours of constant playtime or a general 32-hour battery life. They last so unbelievably long, guys. The comfort of knowing that they'll be good to go when you need them is seriously invaluable. So if you think these will make your studying life as easy as they've made mine, click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/notmark to get 15% off your Raycon purchase. With a 45-day money-back guarantee, if you're not happy with them, you've honestly got nothing to lose.
Naruto カードゲームだ。
Truth be told, by the time I reached chapter 8, I was a little tired of the current format. This first third of the arc, while it did have elements I enjoyed like the schooling with Kakashi and the various challenges he presents them with, I still felt like the narrative of Naruto and most importantly what people liked and loved about it wasn't translating clearly for me. School is usually a surefire way to create instances of hijinks and conflict, but truth be told, there wasn't a lot of focus given to it. The best part was the bento box challenge. Seeing Sasuke work his magic and show how much better he is than the rest was exactly the reassurance I needed to confidently press onward into the second, third, and fourth volumes. And thank God I did. I believe chapter 9 and 10 were where I went from being undecided about this story to sincerely enjoying the experience. When reading and reviewing manga became my job, I felt grateful of course, but also concerned as now a hobby, my one-time retreat, suddenly became my job. And oftentimes in this line of work, I've found psyching myself up to read a particular volume of manga to be difficult. And with the first few chapters of Naruto passing one after the other, I felt as though I might be facing another wall of manga I simply have to get through. But nothing could be further from the truth with this.
Oof. Yeah, in the manga it was way more brutal, by the way.
Chapter 9 is
like you actually saw like the limbs and the torso and everything, like
a glorious chapter that, while exposition heavy, also carries with it a palpable and natural rising tension. I've often said in the past that pressure, more so than conflict, gives the audience a chance to see who the characters they're following really are. And to this chapter's credit, it delivers just the right amount of exposition to build up to two payoffs in both this chapter and the next. Something that's very important to me as a reviewer is that I connect with, on some level, what the author is trying to say, and nowhere is this more crucial than with the main character. Having come to know and love the likes of Goku, Luffy, the JoJos, and numerous other wonderful characters over the span of my life, I was deeply concerned, particularly after the rocky start, that I wouldn't connect with Naruto. But I think I see more of myself in this little character than any of the others. While I love the simplicity and grit of Goku and the kind but tenacious edge to Luffy, there's something about Naruto that defines his character that I find infectious. Doubt. He will work his hands to the bone, walk the soles off his shoes, and work until he collapses to make up for what he perceives to be defects or flaws in his own approach. He recognizes that he's not the most intelligent or the most talented, and we're shown as much thanks to the character of Sasuke. And so, being faced with that reality, he only knows how to put his shoulder down and push himself. He has aspirations and he wants to prove to himself that he's more than what everyone thought he was. And in chapter 9, I learned this about him. Having been almost killed, freezing at the first sign of real danger, he's forced to contend with the fact that Sasuke was ready and he wasn't. And that maybe, just maybe, those naysayers from his village were right. And seeing that frustration bubble beneath the surface of his expression was amazing to sit and read through, particularly because it readied us for what was to come. One final thing I really enjoyed concerning Naruto as a character in these chapters was how Kishimoto decided to splice in the exposition to influence how we might feel about Naruto as a character. After stabbing his own hand in frustration and determination not to become a burden to slow people down, Kakashi notices how fast he's healing. From the beginning, the Nine-Tailed Fox spirit trapped inside Naruto has been—
and that's of course hint at the Nine-Tails, and honestly, like, I think it's most Jinchuriki when they, because I think a lot of tail beasts do like give the like the healing factor to their hosts, I don't think he was just the Nine Tails.
Source of all his longing and suffering. He's been made practically a pariah since that fateful day by everyone in his community, and now Kishimoto wants us to believe that the only thing that makes Naruto special is his nine-tailed fox spirit. If he does anything bad, then that's to be expected. He has the fox spirit after all, and if he does anything good now, then it too can be chalked down to that very spirit he's infused with. But in this chapter, when faced by the mounting pressures around him, instead of freezing like he did last time, he looks to his hand as a reminder, plants his feet, and stands up to someone that just took out his teacher. An impressive, elite-level ninja. I don't know what the prevailing narrative concerning Naruto is online, what people's feelings are towards him, but what impresses me about his character isn't the ability he was able to bring out just in time to save the day, but it's the bravery and determination he showed in the face of a situation we know he was scared to tackle. It wasn't the action that preceded it, it was the decision to take that action in the first place. And all of this was helped enormously by the artwork. It should go without saying at this point that these chapters are filled with wonderful action of numerous varieties, within which I finally felt as though I was starting to understand Kishimoto's rhythm as a layout artist. And that rhythm being, when he's at his best, he catches you off guard. He sets something up only for it to be observed by the elite ninjas, and for them to reverse it on us again and again and again. It's a wonderfully quirky style of paneling that infuses wonderfully with the very concept and theme of the story being told. I've said this before, but I love these types of visually interesting and conceptually simple training exercises or challenges for characters. Stuff like Snake Way, moving a boulder, climbing a tower, or in this case, climbing a tree. Climbing the tree using chakra is a really fun and visually interesting idea for the premise of a chapter, but what I really liked about it was how as soon as Kakashi mentioned this element, the chakras, as something that if one can master, then nothing is beyond them in terms of jutsu, a panel is dedicated specifically to show us Naruto's expression, and it says everything. I can tell that to him, to have that question answered would mean a lot. The exercise in action is a nice bolstering of what I mentioned earlier about Sakura, where Sasuke exerted too much force and Naruto too little.
Not enough.
Sakura hit the sweet spot right in the middle and climbed the tree without the use of her arms. In addition,
which is like, this was always just a nice indication of how like Sakura always had like the best chakra control out of the three, at least maybe you could say up until a certain point. But yeah, this was something that was carried out all throughout the series, especially when like Kishimoto like chose to give her the Byakugo seal, which we see later on in the series, obviously in the war arc, and it's revealed that it's something that you can only do if you have like an insane level of chakra control. And I guess it made sense that Sakura was the one to get it and no one else, because like, he even hinted all the way up at this point that like she has like an insanely good level of chakra control, more than even the genius Sasuke and Naruto, whom we well, Naruto obviously, but like with Naruto, especially when we find out about him later on in the series.
In addition to this being a nice visual and narrative reminder of what she represents to the two characters in question, it's honestly nice to see her exceed in her own unique way ahead of the other two for a change. That is until one page later where Kakashi says that the pools of untapped chakra concealed within Naruto and Sasuke make Sakura's look like nothing.
That's disappointing.
Concerning Sakura, there is one scene I really enjoyed her participation.
I mean, not really, but again, it does kind of make sense when you know what's kind of revealed about them later on in the series. It does make sense, and I do wonder if this was something Kishimoto knew from the beginning, or if this was something that he just like, maybe he had planned to do something else at the beginning, but then later on came up with the idea of you know that whole thing, and then it just like, it was just pure coincidence.
However, with Sakura having already completed the challenge, climbing their respective trees became a head-to-head challenge with Sasuke miles ahead of Naruto. Through this, obviously, it's wonderful to see him slowly catch up. Again, not necessarily because he's more talented or a prodigy like Sasuke is, but because he was willing to ask for help and take the advice of someone like Sakura that was successful before him. Something Sasuke never thought to do. It's a small,
again, more foreshadowing to where they would end up in life.
Moment, but it once again made use of the two supporting characters in a clever way to amplify the desired effect of the main character, Naruto. In the beginning of this video, I was lukewarm on this story. I felt as though it was a little unfocused or unconventional, which made it difficult to latch onto and fully enjoy for me. However, slowly, chapter by chapter, scene by scene, as we advanced farther and farther into this story, I grew a fondness for this world and its characters. Unlike stories I've covered before, Naruto was different for one reason. Right from the get-go with Hunter x Hunter, it was clear to me it was a dark, dramatic, character-driven story first and foremost. The same can be said for One Piece with its strong focus on world building. Perhaps more so than any other story I've read, Luffy's adventure hinges on its world feeling alive as well as its numerous colorful characters. Attack on Titan, on the other hand, was driven by its premise early on and Dragon Ball by its comedy and action. But when it came to Naruto, I was left undecided for quite some time. I couldn't figure out what it was that made it so special to so many people. It had some terrific action, endearing comedy, an interesting world, and as I've outlined already, some nicely realized characters in the likes of Naruto, Sasuke, Kakashi, and even Sakura to some extent. However, at no point did I feel like it was balanced to favor any one area of those over the other. That was until I reached the final encounter of this arc. When it came to the closing moments of this arc, within the final chaotic battle pitting the likes of Sasuke and Haku against each other, and Kakashi and
There is no analysis of Zabuza and Haku's story in this video. Oh, come on.
Zabuza too, it felt as though I finally began to understand what it was that Naruto was especially focused on. And I have to say, it feels rather unique to Naruto. Something I've mentioned a number of times in this video has been that of who I think Naruto is, and one of the many reasons why this scene depicting Naruto, lost in anger, strikes a chord with me is that it once again draws a distinction between who people think he is and who he actually is. It feels ominous, dark. Couple that with Kakashi making mention that he can't feel Naruto's energy and you have for yourself something that more closely resembles a possession than a convenient chosen one type power-up moment. Erupting forth from Naruto not because he summoned it, but because he specifically didn't. Losing control of who he is for a split second, allowing that demonic spirit coiled within him to spring forth with savage and reckless intent. And what stops him in his tracks?
人は大切な何かを守りたいと思った時に本当に強くなれるものなんです。
The second that power vanishes is the moment Naruto regains his sense of self. Strangely, what I thought this scene shared some commonalities with was Avatar: The Last Airbender. Within the first few episodes, Aang's confronted with the horror that took
Naruto's much older than Avatar though, so maybe this moment was a heavy inspiration for the scene in the art temple. Maybe.
Place in his absence once he arrives back at his air temple. Faced with this shock and disarray, he loses himself to the Avatar state, thankfully brought back before he could hurt anyone by the loving embrace of Katara. In Naruto, similar to Avatar, it's being made evident that the fox spirit inside Naruto isn't him necessarily, and instead what makes Naruto who he is, similar to Aang, was his ability to control himself before he hurt someone he cared about. And this sentiment of constantly wanting to try to never give up and to control whatever you can makes itself known at numerous wonderful instances during this story, none perhaps more powerful than through Inari's flashbacks. Naruto not only feels an obligation to help people, but particularly those that he sees himself in. Perhaps because he's a good person, but also perhaps these lost toys more so because he empathizes with their situation specifically. With Haku and Inari acting as two sides of that Naruto coin in a sense. Inari thankfully had someone in Naruto to instill a positive outlook on his situation, leading to his eventual and fantastic save at the end.
Alright everyone, sorry about that. Had to go take care of something, but I'm back, and I think this is where I was.
In Naruto, similar to Avatar, it's being made evident that the fox spirit inside Naruto isn't him necessarily, and instead what makes Naruto who he is, similar to Aang, was his ability to control himself before he hurt someone he cared about. And this sentiment of constantly wanting to try to never give up and to control whatever you can makes itself known at numerous wonderful instances during this story, none perhaps more powerful than through Inari's flashbacks. Naruto not only feels an obligation to help people, but particularly those that he sees himself in. Perhaps because he's a good person, but also perhaps these lost toys more so because he empathizes with their situation specifically. With Haku and Inari acting as two sides of that Naruto coin in a sense. Inari thankfully had someone in Naruto to instill a positive outlook on his situation, leading to his eventual and fantastic save at the end. But on the other hand, we have someone like Haku, a character with an outlook so disastrously unfortunate and tragic that it's almost difficult to accept that he has so much in common with our main character Naruto in the first place, with his untimely and frankly harrowing end coming moment.
And that's kind of what's always like really brilliant about Naruto's antagonists, is that they are in some way a reflection of Naruto. And we've discussed this, I think, in previous videos, where if you look at a lot of the antagonists in Naruto, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are like reflections of Naruto, or at least they all of them were at some point a lot like Naruto, and they all basically show you what could have happened to Naruto if maybe like a couple of things went differently in his life, and Haku of course being one of them.
Moments after this heart to heart, and through this horribly sad end to a fantastic battle, something inside my head clicked. I mentioned towards the beginning of this story that I found the start somewhat rough around the edges, unfocused and ill-defined. However, now, having completed the first arc and having gotten a taste of what this story really is all about, this story, Naruto, feels perfect as a story penned by Masashi Kishimoto. At the beginning of the very first volume I picked up, Kishimoto wrote a short paragraph thanking us for our support of his dream. Overjoyed, he wrote that this was the happiest moment of his life. Unlike Akira Toriyama, someone he admired and looked up to, Kishimoto's path to success wasn't as straightforward. Nothing seemed to come easy to him. Time and again, he'd face rejection after rejection at every corner, all in a desperate attempt to achieve his dream of one day breaking into the manga industry. It's not difficult to see the parallels he's drawn between his personal experiences and the beginning of Naruto's story. The journey of a young, unwanted orphan child tenaciously and earnestly pursuing his dreams, despite his detractors, and in no more fitting or poetic a fashion, together both Kishimoto and Naruto help each other to achieve their respective dreams. Speaking as a creative myself, one of the biggest difficulties in my professional life has been my family's initial disapproval of my vocation. But at no point could I ever see myself doing anything other than this. I love my job. Exhausting and stressful as it may be at times, I love this. And I think that's why I tend to fall in love with characters that have a strong sense of self above all else. Characters like Luffy, someone that no matter what it takes will, in an unflinching fashion, march onward towards his goal. It's inevitable. He will be the Pirate King. Or Goku, someone I found a lot of comfort in as a kid growing up. To him, nothing ever seemed insurmountable. He was never scared. And to this day, the effect this moment has had on me can be felt. Naruto, however, isn't like either of these two. He's me. You. Us. He's that kid that has a chip on his shoulder, something to prove, someone that doesn't know for certain if he will achieve his dreams, but god damn it, he's gonna push himself until he cannot push himself any further. It is for that reason, among so many others, I can't help but root for Naruto when he fights for his dreams, and it's why I've developed a special fondness for Kishimoto's story. It's still no Dragon Ball, Hunter x Hunter, JoJo, and certainly not a One Piece. But it doesn't have to be. It's Naruto. It's Masashi Kishimoto pouring his heart out, and it's created something that, at least to me, feels entirely different. It's something that was unbelievably special to one person in the beginning and became special to millions around the world today. And I think, finally, I understand that feeling. And it's only the beginning. I can't wait to see where this earnest, endearing, and emotional adventure will lead me. But until then, I've been Totally Not Mark. I'll see you all next week. And thank you so much for watching.
So, okay, yeah, that's probably going to continue music. But yeah, there you go. And okay, yeah, this was a really good video. Again, I do just want to apologize for the you know, what happened in near the end of the video, where I had to step away for a second because someone needed my help. But anyway, this video I thought was really good. The Land of Waves arc, like, to me, it's still up there with one of the best arcs in all of Naruto. Like, it's and again, like how he drew the parallels between Naruto and Kishimoto, and how, yeah, I mean, if you don't know, like, Kishimoto did not have it easy when he was first getting into the manga industry. Like, I highly urge you if you haven't done it already, to look into Masashi Kishimoto's history and how he really struggled to finally get into the manga industry. If you don't know, I do highly recommend you look it up. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please look forward to the next video, which will be part 2, which actually you can see right here, and it's going to be the Chuunin exams. I'm really excited to hear his thoughts on the Chuunin exams at its entirety, and I look forward, of course, to hearing his thoughts on the rest of Naruto. Let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comment section down below. Remember to leave a like, share this video, subscribe if you haven't. Make sure to click on the bell icon to be notified whenever I post a new video. And again, guys, please make sure to check the description for links to this video, as well as a link to Totally Not Mark's channel, so you can head on over there, watch his videos, and make sure to support him in that way. With that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.